Creepypastas are a shell of what they once used to be. Oh my god. Actually, can I just break the mold real quick about the whole Traumathon thing? While I was researching old ass creepypastas, dude, visiting that website is horrible. There are so many ads that it has slowed down my browser significantly, and I swear I have viruses sneaking around the corners of my hard drive right now. That place is cancer for your fucking computer. Don't go to creepypasta.com. It is really, really bad. Anyways, back to Traumathon. I'm sure nowadays people still make some pretty good creepypastas out there, but for the most part, it seems that the short story horror genre has adapted to many different things. You know, you can call them creepypastas, SCPs, true stories from Reddit, ARGs, whatever. They're still just creepypastas. But with the immense popularity that creepypastas have garnered, it was only a matter of time till the format was exhausted of all creativity and talent. Like I said, I'm sure there are still diamonds in the rough nowadays, but creepypastas are now more associated with memes online. Nobody takes them seriously nowadays, but back then they were top notch. Or so I thought, anyways. Yeah, actually, looking back on them now, creepypastas were never really that good. But to an edgy, pretentious teenage mind, this was golden. I assure you though, if you actually look back on a lot of these creepypastas, especially the more well-known ones, you'll probably be shocked at how bad they were. Take for example Jeff the Killer, a story that so many people remember just for the scary image, and I won't lie, that image is terrifying. Like, that shit gave all of my friends nightmares. Not me though, you know. I'm tough as fuck. You know, men who wear bows are chads, you know, take it from me. I am an orgasmic god. Oh, where was I? All right, the Virgin Jeff. Reading his story is actually kind of funny. The way the story is structured feels like it was definitely written by a teenage angsty kid who doesn't really know how to write a book, but thinks it's really simple and, you know, cares, right? Authors are just nerds. They don't know how to write. I can write a better story than this Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's not even that scary. Where's the jump scares and the hyper-realistic gore and stuff? He describes the first attack, which makes Jeff the Killer seem like a ninja, but with him lunging at his first victim, throwing his knife at his father with clean precision. It's so weird. Also, apparently Jeff talks? I never actually read this story, but seeing him talk is just so jarring because he pretty much talks exactly what I would expect an angsty teenager to sound like. He's being yelled at by his parents, he's talking back to his parents. He's not even being like edgy. You know, he's just saying like typical teenage boy stuff that someone would say to their parents. It's like, it's so funny, like reading him talk. You know for a fact, Jeff grew up to be some incel who's watching the Joker right now thinking about how it's his manifesto or some shit. Like, that is the kind of character Jeff the Killer is, and it is so fucking hilarious. But his iconic thing that makes his creepypasta so memorable is the psychotic smile. That's literally the only reason why Jeff is popular. It's because of this image, and because weeaboo teenage girls just love smiling psychotic characters with hoodies for some reason. I don't know. Something about a hoodie is just orgasmic for little girls. I just don't get it, really. Overall, Jeff the Killer is just a power fantasy story about kids who just want to kill their bullies and their shitty parents. I don't know, because there is a point where he has to kill his bullies because they have guns or something. And keep in mind, they're like 13 or 14 years old. They have guns and pointing at his parents. And he's like, no, I'll save them. And he kills them all. Bleach goes on his face or something like that. And then he kills his parents anyway. So it's like, whatever. It's dumb. Please stop fantasizing about this dumbass white kid. Speaking of dumb attires, Slenderman, he'll hit you with his big old hand. Slenderman is another edgelord creation from the creepypasta community. While his story is pretty vague, what with it just talking about this mythical cryptid that lasted for an eternity, Slenderman didn't really take off until Marble Hornets decided to run with its IP. Marble Hornets, if you're not aware of, by the way, is a web story based on the Slenderman lore. It stars Jay, a young man who's trying to find out the mystery behind Marble Hornets, which is an incomplete film shot by his friend Alex, who just never got around to finishing it. I'll talk more about that later whenever I can in Traumathon. So just keep an eye out for that video later on. For now, all you need to know is that when the series launched, it pretty much added much more depth and horror to the Slenderman mythos. It established the whole wonky camera effect that happens whenever he's around. It grounded his identity, explains why he exists or who works for him. And it even added its own flavor into the horror mythos that made Slenderman far scarier than the original content, which was just Slenderman at his base level. However, the people behind Marble Hornets just elevated him, made more monsters, and it was really well made, to be honest. It basically just adds story that lacked flavor in the original. Even though the creators have stated that the monster in their story isn't actually Slenderman. Yeah, right. That's not Slender. Okay, sure. Speaking of people trying to save their asses from copyright, Suicide Squid. Or Squidward Suicide. Did I say Suicide Squid? Like Suicide Squad? Alright, sure, let's run with that. Let's just run with that. Anyways, you all know the story, I'm sure. But if you don't know, let me run it down for you. Some intern at Nickelodeon somehow got this magical privilege of getting into the magical closet full of SpongeBob episodes. I guess they needed to get there because they needed to archive an episode or something like that. Whatever, who cares? Anyways, they find Squidward Suicide and they watch it. It was a normal episode until suddenly there was hyper-realistic Squidward with hyper-realistic eyes, and Squidward was hyper-realistic, so realistic, and everyone in the crowd had bloody, realistic eyes, and they were also hyper-real, etc., etc., you know. And then suddenly the footage just gratuitously shifts to like footage of child blank, something I can't say because it'll get demonetized, and dead babbies. I'm trying to like avoid demonetization here. Give me a break. So all this horrifying gore, hyper-realistic stuff, and blood and guts, and yeah, it's just a typical SpongeBob episode, honestly. Nothing too special. Actually, interesting enough, this was the very first creepypasta I ever read, and me being the dumbass that I was, believed this to be 100% true without question. I mean, keep in mind, I think a good chunk of the audience believed creepypastas were real, mainly because we were all just dumb brats that have never actually experienced this stuff before. It was like Goosebumps, but with hyper-realistic eyes and blood, and made by people that we didn't even know. It wasn't just an author that had a book, it was people who were recounting their stories as if they were real life. Oh, and just so I don't get too off track here, I'm pretty sure that the Squidward Suicide creepypasta just popularized the whole hyper-realistic eyes and blood, mainly because SpongeBob is well known for having hyper-realistic shots in the show, so I'm assuming the writer of the creepypasta just made that into the scary element of the story. So when other people did the whole hyper-realistic eyes and various EXE creepypastas, it didn't really make sense because it just was comical to think a video game can be hyper realistic, as if that technology exists or something like that. Speaking of which, let's get on to the EXE creepypastas. No kidding, this is my favorite format of the creepypasta genre, I guess. Something about finding a ROM-hacked game that was cursed was just something that was very appealing to me, I guess because I was a gamer girl back then. Essentially, all EXE stories start off with this kid or man baby who goes to a garage sale buying a game for nostalgic reasons or some bullshit, and sometimes the garage seller would be very worried or would be a bit off as soon as they purchased the one cursed game that they didn't want them to buy, even though it was clearly there, like plain as day. I don't know why you would want to sell it if you didn't want anybody to buy it. Hello? Anyways, but then they'd come back home and then they play it normally, and then the game would talk to them or turn off, or it would have a jump scare or some other bullshit. You know, this leads to the kid thinking, oh, I just saw Sonic get drenched in hyper-realistic blood, and that's weird, but I'm sure it's nothing, or something that stupid. Oh god, it was so dumb. But I seriously loved it. Again, it was appealing to think that this could happen in real life, or to anyone. And when the stories were cringy, well, I benefited from that too, because that gave me entertainment, because it was just really fucking funny. Like the Godzilla EXE creepypasta about that one dude's dead girlfriend or whatever. God, that was so stupid. Oh my god, I loved it. Yet throughout all the dumb shit creepypasta has provided, the one EXE creepypasta I absolutely loved was Ben Drowned. Now that's a story for another day, but man, Ben Drowned lived in another world of its own. It had gameplay footage, scary storytelling, a scary lore, a pretty interactive ARG that was actually really fun and cool. It redefined the way we looked at the game, and the way we listen to the music. It was a brilliant piece of work, and I'd argue one of the best creepypastas ever made. Seriously. Now, there's a lot I haven't mentioned. Really popular ones like The Rake, Herobrine, Laughing Jack, the Russian sleep experiment, Tiki Toby, which is something I never actually read, but I heard it's really popular, Sonic.exe, the Tails doll, all sorts of other stories, but to be frank, most of these stories haven't really aged well. Either some of these stories ended up being memes like Herobrine or Sonic.exe, or they're just needlessly long and boring like The Rake or Russian Sleep Experiment. Either way, none of them have really aged well, at least in my opinion. I still love Ben Drowned, and while this one technically doesn't count, I believe Username 666 is still a fantastic video. Not the shitty creepypasta, mind you. The video made by Nana, who is a fantastic horror artist and content creator. The creepypasta was made literally to ride on the success of Nana's video, but the video itself, it still holds up, and it's still really good. But that's the beauty of creepypastas. A lot of them, while the storytelling lacks in flavor or writing skills in general, a lot of them are amazing simply because of the fact of the concept. The concepts were always the creepy aspects of it, like a cursed video game or a cursed doll or cursed video footage, etc. Take for example Squidward Suicide. After 10 plus years of being on the internet, it finally shows up in an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. Like, it was actually acknowledged by someone in the show and was put into an episode. Let's also not forget the countless games that were produced that were literally inspired by creepypastas, or the show Channel Zero that was based off of Candle Cove. So sure, creepypastas, they haven't aged well, and I'll be the first to say that not everything that was inspired by creepypastas were great either. Yet the cultural impact it had on the horror genre can't be ignored. It has a massive footprint in the world of horror, and love it or hate it, creepypastas will continue to serve as the inspiration for several more projects in the future. Some good, some bad. Either way, at least we got entertainment.